This past Friday in Milwaukee, my family buried my Aunt Alice. She was a wonderful woman, truly a disciple of Jesus, one of our family's favorite aunts. And my dad, who was really quite close to her, and this is was his last living sibling, described her as a lover, somebody who freely expressed love to all she encountered, not in some shallow, saccharine way, but in a deep way that flowed from her faith. And her life was not without suffering. She was in an abusive relationship, in an abusive marriage, and divorced at a time when that was not common, and raised her 6 children by herself while working very hard. She is a hero. The thing that marks Alice is her generosity of spirit, a life poured out generously for others. And that's what I'll always recall. One of the best, in fact, the best gift that I've ever received, I can't think of anything that eclipses it, was on my ordination day in 2002. She wrapped up a painting that my grandmother had painted. My grandmother was quite a painter and stopped at 22 when she was married. She really would have been a virtuoso had she continued, but even her paintings at a young age were remarkable. So Aunt Alice gave me a painting of Christ in the garden, and it surprised me. I was emotional, I remember that. And then she told me a funny story. My grandmother was a force of nature. She was 100% German, very smart, very talented. And but she would sometimes gift things and then take them back. God bless you, Grandma, I know you're up there. It's part of the story, it happens to be true. So my aunt gave me this painting and said, if your grandmother were still alive, she would have come into my house, taken it off the wall, and said, I'm giving this to Danny. That was my name. I was the youngest of 33 grandchildren. Now, some smart Alex at the 7:30 Mass, when we were down having coffee, said, well, we see your new nickname. We're going to call you Danny. Please don't. In any event, friends, our readings today invite us to be generous of spirit, generous of heart. The two are related, often encompassed by the term magnanimity, to have a wide heart, to be generous in the gifts that we share. This is who we're called to be. Jesus is the one who literally gave his very life so that we might have life. We are disciples of Jesus. This is who we are called to be. And the readings today really exhort us toward that generosity. God's goodness overflows in generosity. He portions 70 of the elders with the spirit that he gave Moses so that they might prophesy. But Joshua wants to limit that generosity, right? And that can sometimes be part of our makeup. I think part of the effect of original sin, when generosity is extended to the community or to others. And Moses says, no. Would that all could prophesy. The goodness of God overflowing. And this is the theme in the gospel today, right? They don't want somebody casting out demons in the name of Jesus because they think that person's an outsider. And again, the message is, those who are not against us are for us. God's goodness is broadly distributed. God's grace, including outside of the church. As Catholics, we don't have a lock on God's grace or God's Spirit. That Spirit and goodness overflows to humanity. But part of our challenge as people of God and Christians is to not inhibit that goodness. One of the things that I'm so proud about at the Basilica, and this has been the legacy for generations, is the message that all are welcome. I said this last Wednesday at a dinner with Father John Bauer was there. The reason I've continued that, and certainly Michael O'Connell and Father Deese and the leaders of the Basilica have all opened the doors widely, as have the staff and volunteers. This is how God meets the people that he has created, and it's a hallmark of this beautiful parish. St. James also, in his fiery manner, says, do not deprive the poor, do not deprive folks of their wages. In fact, you're called, having been redeemed, to extend that mercy to all. I am most thankful for this community, and I described it the other night as sui generis, and I am not a Latin scholar. I almost flunked out one summer at Notre Dame in seminary. But I do know that sui generis means something like set apart, of its own place, in its own place. That's what the Basilica is. This is an extraordinary parish, and of course I can take no credit for it. I've only been here 2 years. But I can be thankful for the beautiful grace and goodness that overflows in this parish community. We're not perfect, to be sure. We have ways to grow, ways to improve, and hopefully we will be open to God's guiding spirit. This is a place with beautiful liturgies, perhaps no more beautiful than anywhere in the country. And that's a gift. This is where we meet God and we are filled with God's grace in the Eucharist. In a minute, we will bless our Emmaus ministers. I'm so proud of them accompanying people, listening deeply to them. This is such an important ministry, and it flows from the Eucharist. This is why we commission them today at the Eucharist and during the Eucharist. It flows from this Eucharistic feast. Christ, who walked on the road to Emmaus after he was raised, shows us the model of how to do this. During 4 of the 5 Masses this weekend, and I'll do this part briefly, I'm preaching about the Basilica Fund. And I'm inviting all of us to generously respond to the needs of our parish and the ministries that the Basilica Fund supports. All of these ministries, including the Emmaus ministries and the outreach ministries, the liturgy, and all that we do here. Here's the good news. The giving to St. Vincent de Paul, to the Landmark, and to the Basilica Fund are all up. That's great in these challenging economic times. That's such a statement about how we value this parish. And what I'm inviting people to do is to give in proportion to the gift that the Basilica is. And I don't presume people's generosity. I am very thankful for what you've done already in supporting us in challenging times. But if you are able to give and to perhaps increase your giving by a recurring gift, either weekly or quarterly or monthly or even annually, some give annually, that would be wonderful. That would continue to sustain us in all that we do. And so there's a number of ways that you can do that. Folks have been sent materials. If you're parishioners, if you're visitors or friends, there's an envelope in the pews and other materials that are here. We would ask you to prayerfully consider what you can do in supporting the Basilica Fund. We are seeking to raise $3.5 million. And I've almost gotten to the challenging news. So the good news is all of our giving is up. What's the challenging news? You know this from your own homes. The expenses are up by about 6 to 7% beyond our increase in giving. And so we labor under that reality as you do at home. So if you can find in your own budget and your own giving pattern to increase your gift or to make a recurring gift, this would help the Basilica in the months and years to come. The theme for this year is hope. Hope. Hope and magnanimity and generosity and gratitude all go together. The grateful person is a generous giver. The grateful person is a person filled with hope. It all works together in our life of discipleship. Hope does not disappoint. That's what we hear from Romans, and that's our theme this year. Hope is also the theme for the Jubilee year that Pope Francis has called to begin this year. We have hope, friends. We have hope in a God who made heaven and earth out of nothing. We have hope because Jesus Christ walked among us, died and was raised, and reconciled us to the Father. I have hope because this is an extraordinary parish made from extraordinary disciples, and we can continue to sustain this parish as we move into the future with confidence and hope in our loving God.